Yo, what went down on NBA Today regarding Jared Vanderbilt's preseason performance is going to make Lakers fans genuinely optimistic that this team just solved their biggest defensive weakness. And I'm not talking about some preseason overreaction, where one good game against third-string competition suddenly makes everyone a championship contender. We're talking about Vanderbilt moving like the 2023 version of himself that made the Lakers the best defensive team in basketball overnight. When they first acquired him, we're talking about improved shooting mechanics that looked significantly smoother and quicker, even though he went 0 for 3 from beyond the arc. And most importantly, we're talking about the kind of perimeter, athleticism, and defensive intensity that this roster has desperately lacked since he went down with those catastrophic foot injuries. When Malika Andrews brought in the film breakdown showing Vanderbilt's positioning, his recovery speed, his hands disrupting passing lanes, and his overall court coverage that had shades of that Warriors playoff series where he was guarding Steph Curry like he had instant transmission abilities, I had to pause, because this isn't just depth addition. This is potentially the single most important development for whether the Lakers can balance their elite offense with good enough defense to actually compete for a championship. So I'm watching NBA Today as they're setting up their Lakers preseason coverage, and suddenly the entire panel shifts into this cautiously optimistic analysis mode because everyone understands that preseason games don't mean much in the grand scheme, especially when you're missing 4 of your top 7 rotation players and you're running out lineups with Bronny James and Dalton Knecht and guys who won't even be in the rotation once real basketball starts. But Kendrick Perkins was making this critical distinction about what you actually evaluate during preseason. You're not judging team performance or defensive schemes or overall execution. You're looking at individual players and asking specific questions about their development, their health, their fit within the system. Let me paint you the complete picture of what really transpired during this segment. Because the surface-level Vanderbilt looked good in preseason headline completely misses the historical context of what 2023 Vanderbilt meant for this franchise, the specific physical attributes that made him elite and whether those have returned after double-foot surgery, the offensive limitations that could still prevent him from starting depending on matchups, and the harsh reality that one preseason game doesn't confirm anything, but at least provides encouraging evidence that maybe his recovery is finally complete after a full year of looking a step slow. Here's the foundational context that Stephen A. Smith established right at the opening. The Lakers' biggest question mark heading into this season isn't offense. It's whether they can defend well enough to balance out what should be a top 3 offensive unit in the entire league. Stephen A. was saying he actually thinks the Lakers will be the #1 offense in basketball this season with LeBron, Luka, AD, Austin Reeves, and the surrounding shooting talent. But the concerning question is whether the defense can be good enough, not top 5 necessarily, but maybe top 12 or top 15, to where the elite offense can carry them to championship contention. And this is where Vanderbilt becomes absolutely crucial to that equation. When the Lakers first acquired him in 2023, they went from middle-of-the-pack defensively to literally the best defense in all of basketball. That's not hyperbole. That's statistical fact, backed by defensive rating and opponent shooting percentages. If they can get that version of Vanderbilt back, combined with DeAndre Ayton buying in defensively the way he showed flashes of doing in the preseason opener, suddenly you're looking at a team that might actually have the defensive foundation to support championship aspiration. Richard Jefferson was breaking down the specific issues Vanderbilt had all last season after returning from the double-foot surgery. And this film study revealed exactly why Lakers fans were so concerned throughout the year. Vanderbilt looked a step behind in every action. He'd get blown by on drives. He'd be out of position on rotations. He couldn't recover the way everyone was accustomed to seeing from 2023 Vanderbilt. That elite perimeter defense that made him arguably the best defender in basketball just wasn't there because his lateral movement and explosion had been compromised by having to literally relearn how to walk after surgery on both feet. But in this preseason game, that step behind quality was gone. Vanderbilt was everywhere, had his hands in everything, was making the kind of plays that defined his 2023 season. The film they showed had him guarding multiple positions, switching seamlessly, recovering on rotations, getting deflections and steals. The comparison that kept getting referenced was that 2023 playoff series against the Warriors, where Vanderbilt was guarding Steph Curry, and it legitimately looked like he had instant transmission. He'd be defending on one side of the court, and suddenly he's recovering to contest a Curry 3 on the opposite wing. If the Lakers can get that guy back consistently, it changes everything about their defensive ceiling. The starting lineup discussion became a major subplot, because if Vanderbilt is truly back to 2023 form, does he deserve to start over Josh Hart or whoever else is competing for that fifth spot? Stephen A. was making this compelling argument about why the offensive fit actually works better with this current roster construction than it did alongside LeBron and AD. With Luka Doncic as the primary ball handler instead of LeBron, the spacing issues that plagued Vanderbilt in the playoffs essentially disappear because Luka is fundamentally a jump shooter who's comfortable operating in traffic and shooting over the top of defenses. When teams packed the paint to leave Vanderbilt open in previous years, it killed LeBron and AD's effectiveness because they both want to operate inside or drive to the basket. But Luka doesn't care if you pack the paint. He'll just stop at the free throw line and drain mid-range jumpers all game. And as soon as defenses adjust and collapse, he's hitting Vanderbilt on cuts, or finding Ayton with lobs, or swinging to shooters on the perimeter. LeBron has also improved his three-point shooting significantly, and said himself he's been working on catch-and-shoot mechanics because he knows he'll be playing more off-ball alongside Luka and Reeves. If LeBron can shoot 38–40% from three on higher volume, the spacing concerns with Vanderbilt largely evaporate. The shooting mechanics discussion had the entire panel genuinely encouraged, despite Vanderbilt going 0 for 3 from beyond the arc, and this is where you see how film study reveals more than box scores. The new shooting form looked significantly smoother, with way less hitch in the motion, and most importantly, the release was dramatically quicker. Part of Vanderbilt's shooting struggles in the past was that, by the time he loaded up that catapult-like motion, defenders had already closed out and were contesting. But now he's catching and shooting in one fluid motion, which means even if he's not making them yet, at least he's getting quality attempts off. Here's what really emerged from the entire NBA Today coverage that I think Lakers fans need to understand. Vanderbilt doesn't need to become a 40% three-point shooter to be a legitimate starter on a championship team. If he can hit 34–35% from the corners while providing that elite perimeter defense, the hustle plays, the offensive rebounding, the transition athleticism that's been missing, that's enough to make this roster work. The Lakers have offense in abundance. What they desperately need is someone who can chase down loose balls, switch onto guards and stay in front of them, disrupt passing lanes, and provide the kind of dirty work that championship teams require. If Vanderbilt is truly back to 2023 form defensively, the Lakers just became legitimate contenders regardless of whether his three-point percentage ever reaches league average.